Hey everybody, I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to be opening the door to providing energy healing and support for the world, for each other. I've been doing healing behind the scenes, and I've been thinking a lot about North Korea. And I think about, you know that saying, like, be the change that you want to see in the world? And sometimes the change isn't all about, I'm going to be the love that I want to see in this world. Because love in and of itself sometimes is the brutal truth. Is sometimes love is saying no when nobody else is saying no. And you're the only one that's saying no, and now you're being criticized and destroyed for being different. And that is being love. And love, truly, love is not a breakable thing. It doesn't break you. How can that be? Because people would say that love can break their heart. But was it love that broke it? You know? Was it actually love that broke it? Or was it something else that broke it? And we're learning about love here. And love is complicated for some reason. I think the younger you are, the simpler love feels. The older you get, the more confusing it can become, because you have so many experiences and so many exchanges, and what was the outcome of it all, and what was the outcome of yourself after all of this time. And sometimes the most noble of virtues in a person's personality is something we admire, but if you are that person, you don't necessarily admire what you went through to become that person. And maybe you do. And maybe nobody will ever see you for the virtues that you are. Maybe they'll never appreciate you for the virtues that you express, because they themselves might not ever be able to see it or hear it or translate that about you. So I've got some deep reflection going on. And I was thinking about North Korea, and I did energy healing behind the scenes for North Korea. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. But I guess in this stream of thought, I think about the fact that I was born into this world. And I have a specific design or a specific attraction to being a specific way. That I feel that I carry this spark inside my heart, inside my soul. And maybe it's part of my biology and part of my upbringing and all of that. But I think some of it is influenced by an energetic harmony or an energetic design that maybe science hasn't figured it out yet. Who knows? But I came here to be a part of being here. And being a part of this world, something that's always guided me, or something I've always wanted, was to make it a better world. Like, it's been in my bones, you know, it's been in my blood to make it a better world. And whether that's in a small scale or a grand scale, and to even understand what that exactly means. As I still think about the time, and I mention this every now and then, when Archangel Metatron told me, it's just a perspective, but it's an important one, okay? That my idea of a better world is when people have access to one another in a way where we can be most honestly ourselves and work through what makes life really worth living. And we're going to have nuances naturally, but imagine living in a world like North Korea. That's not my idea of a loving environment. That's not my idea of a place I'd want to go live, of the type of society I would want to create. I don't know what to do to help North Korea other than to send love there. And Archangel Metatron had said that if I were to, let's just say, become every single person on the planet, and suddenly, as every single person, allow every single person to suddenly get it like I get it, and then we could all just understand this kind of love and finally just start noticing and appreciating each other. It's controlling. It's messed up completely. Because it wouldn't be a creative and unique and individual exchange where we're learning about love together, where we have conflict, where we have to find courage, where we have to say the truth, even though the truth is not what everybody else wants to hear. We have to allow this to be growing and changing and shifting. How many would like to raise the vibration and create awakening that don't even really know what that means, what awakening really is? And we're constantly learning the next level of what that actually means. What does it truly mean to be an awakened person? As you notice something about society that grinds your gears or doesn't feel right, but how can you comprehend the people that work in the roles that try to move and shape and shift? And now we have these new rules and regulations, and it's just everything has to work together piece by piece by piece. It all works together. So I, Abbey, can't control that. I can't. And my idea of what love is isn't necessarily all ideas of what love is, because I'll always be still learning, as everybody else will always still be learning. So we have to appreciate the love as we all comprehend it, share it, experience it. And you could see someone who seems so shallow, but they still are a representation of love, and they still are a representation of their own learning. And they'll reject you, they'll destroy you, or they'll be open to getting it through your eyes. And you don't have to force feed anybody anything, but you just feel this sense of exchange it's dynamically different from person to person to person to person. So when you understand the reality that we're all uniquely different, and how we share or hide, and how we navigate truth, how we communicate truth or avoid communicating truth, how we understand love as we want to possess it, we want to control it, we want to have it all for ourselves, or hey, if that feels right to you, I support you completely. Like, so what kind of love is true love? Unconditional love has no conditions, versus love that has conditions, a judgmental love. And so if you were to look at society, the different kinds of societies, then what kind of love, unbreakable love, what kind of love, the kind of love where somebody would say, this kind of love is breaking my heart, but was it love or was it illusion? And so what's going on in North Korea? What does that mean to the rest of the world? Can we care about human beings, no matter what country they're in? Is it our place to understand a freer kind of love than what is allowed there? And does that make that kind of love better, or that illusion of love better, than the illusion of love that exists in North Korea, for instance? So could I not say that we could do better? We could help people somehow, some way, with love, somehow, some way. Whose perspective is right and whose perspective is wrong, and how do you navigate that? If something doesn't feel right in my heart about it, if I were to take my mind and my logical analysis of moral right and moral wrong, I just make it disappear. What is my heart saying, silently? And so, if I want to be the change I want to see in this world, what does that mean exactly? What can I possibly conceive about love that is creative versus love that is, let's say, destructive? And can't we learn something creative and interesting from the destructive kind of love? And could we respect it? Does that destructive kind of love actually destroy you, or do you destroy yourself in it? Do you find strength and courage to endure it? What is it teaching you about love in a shallow way or in a deep way? And the many pages of the book of yourself, and how you translate reality on a conscious level or subconscious level or an eternity, infinite, interdimensional level. I'm just really deeply thinking about this. It makes me really sad, because I don't want to see people suffer. And if we have to watch each other suffer, is that love? Can we help each other? Is there a solution? All I can do is what I can do. So I did some energy healing for North Korea, and there was a lot to be seen there that was surprising to me, actually. So maybe it's real. Maybe this was just part of the healing. You guys decide. When I got to the borders, there was this really intense firewall. Is the only way I could describe it. And it was smoldering hot, and it was black, and it kept the border completely contained and outlined. And it wouldn't be easy to go in. And because the energy on the inside isn't necessarily comfortable, there's not really a draw or desire to go there, okay? Nor does this wall want you to ever go there. And so if you're on the inside, though, and you want to get out, this is going to keep you in your pig pen, okay? You don't get to get out. And anybody who wants to go in, you might influence the pigs to find a way out of their pen. Or maybe the majestic horses or whatever. We're talking about human beings here, but they're almost like livestock. I was thinking of the word livestock. We're talking about human beings here in a container. They can't just leave. So I had to do energy work just to get into North Korea, okay? And once I got into North Korea, I started to learn about an unexpected reality. And it also showed me another lifetime of my own. Something that I found conflicting in my own life today kind of parallels that life. And maybe it creates an answer as to life isn't necessarily always about the just and the good, and the fairy tale ending isn't necessarily what you're going to get. And are you okay with that? And could you have faith that you might get that but never get it? I don't know. But when I got into the inside, this is the gist. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's just what I experienced in order to interpret. But the supreme ruler, supreme leader, Kim Jong-Un, I experienced him as having doubt that he truly is Savior, or Jesus Christ, or that he is this incarnate super being. There's actual bit of doubt in him about himself, that he was groomed to become a certain mindset in order to see what would happen if. And who would have constructed this great psychological, scientific study, chose North Korea in order to see how human beings would react in certain circumstances on a bigger population level. So now let's take North Korea as a psychological study, is what I saw. That North Korea was chosen as a psychological study. Kim Jong-Un was chosen and groomed as a psychological study. And that the people there are part of a psychological study to see what would happen if, in order to interpret the human mind and how human beings can be controlled. How we could take one tiny example, North Korea, and then implement that learning into the United States, for instance, into the whole world. And then we all become the livestock with our dimensional space, where we slowly but surely give up our freedom even to think, even to be able to think. And so when I went in there and I discovered this, it actually was interesting, because if Kim Jong-un had a doubt that he was some super being, let's just say, even if it was this big, does he have the courage to say this doesn't feel right? Would he even be allowed to say this doesn't feel right if he's surrounded by people who are encouraging him to believe in himself in this way? And maybe it's not so cut and dry, but that's how it translated. I didn't expect it to translate like that. It translated like that for a reason. And the people, why aren't the people working together? Why aren't the people choosing to realize that they are free? To realize that they are free together, and to choose together what kind of society they want it to be. Then I asked myself, do we do that in the United States, in Canada? Does anywhere in the world do the people just do that? Do you ever just work together and realize that we could do it differently? And how would we get organized enough? How we get organized enough? That freedom convoy that happened in Canada was an example of organized love, despite what the media wants you to believe. It was actually successful and amazing. And it was as beautiful as anyone could ever imagined it to be. But once you have the media speaking a certain language, you don't really know anymore what the truth is that's going on. We're already starting to parallel North Korea. There's other times I've done, healing for the United States and my own time, and the United States is becoming a psychological experiment. Who is doing this? What I find interesting is let's choose a psychological experiment where we are going to have people in fear and controllable versus people empowered and free. So let's have this psychological experiment with fear versus love. And so if we are empowering people with love, what kind of society could we create versus empowering people to be afraid? What kind of society could we create? And what truly do we create? People who are automatons and basically grayed out and duplicates of one another that have no real way of expressing personality or heart, never hugging, never touching one another's hands or high-fiving or thumbs up or anything, because that might be an offensive. It's starting to become strange, It was becoming strange. But because of this recent journey in my own time to North Korea, it gets me thinking, if I want to be the change I want to see in this world, then what does that mean for what I'm reflecting upon, That would mean that I would always have to speak openly and honestly with what I agree with and disagree with, no matter what anybody says. Even if people hated me for me just speaking from the heart, if people not understanding me even just from speaking from the heart, I don't need people's permission to say what I need to say. But we do seem to need permission. We do seem to have a tenderness or a kindness in how we communicate with one another. I was thinking about this too, about life and death. And you have evil that is willing to do whatever it takes. They'll break the rules. They'll murder you. They'll lie. They'll recreate the truth. They'll change the circumstances. They'll break the rules and blame someone else for it. They're willing to go through life without a moral backbone, so they don't have any rules. They're in a way free to be pure chaos and then push the problem somewhere else and away from themselves as though they never did it. So I was thinking about how evil has the potential to assassinate good, but good would never have the potential to assassinate evil. World War II obviously is an example where good has to aggressively stand up. The love has to aggressively stand up to the chaos. I mean, is it love? Is it good versus evil? What is that war about? Is protecting freedom to live or become a Nazi regime global world with Jewish people in concentration camps and anybody else they feel like throwing in there. So what kind of illness creates the desire to have all power? There's somebody who now has become a slave to their own ego because they don't really have the soul energy within the heart in order to make moral good codes. So good people, you can count on them to follow the rules and not want to break the rules because it makes them feel like they've broken their own heart. They don't intend or try to step over the line because they don't want to stand out. They don't want to challenge the system. They just want simple, peaceful life. And it takes real courage to come out of the woodwork and to say no when you're being threatened. When your job's being threatened, you could take your kids away, they'll freeze your bank account, they'll whatever to you. Do you know that behavior is a narcissist, is somebody who's mentally insane? Because love that wants to destroy you isn't love at all. Love that's telling everybody else, well, we need to feel uncomfortable about this person. We need to do this to this person. And then everybody else says, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we should do that. Just get rid of that person, you know, however we need to. Because people, I don't know, conform. People don't want the challenge of deciding, is that really the right thing to do? And maybe I should say something, or maybe I should do nothing. Maybe I should just get further in the background and just kind of walk away from the situation. They don't want to create conflict. But you'll have one person who's so ridiculously loud and insecure and desperate, and they'll do whatever it takes. And for some reason, they have influential power. And now we have something like North Korea. And who's to say this isn't the beginning of a North Korea situation in North America? So at what point in time do we wake up and realize, what is it that we want to get out of life? And what is it we want for each other? What kind of world do we want to live in? It comes back to Archangel Metatron's message about you can't decide what kind of love is the right kind of love, that we should all just adopt that kind of love. And for me, it's like, so we shouldn't just adopt Jesus's kind of love, for instance, like unconditional love. But could I, the human being, conceive of that completely? Or could I only try to attain it in one way, shape, or form, try my best? And isn't that the best we could ask for anybody? They try to create a world where we're all trying towards that goal. And so what happens when we have a certain seed planted in the psychology of the human race that desperately needs to control other people, control them to the point they've taken away the very reason of being an animated human being, a loving and happy human being? So I needed to say that I'm having a hard time deciding what my next video will be, because this has been kind of heavy on my heart, and I asked myself, maybe I should do healing for North Korea here for YouTube, but I really wanted to talk about what I saw there and let you guys, I mean, what would we do about that if that's true? Let's say, you know, that's true. That's a psychological study for a country, size of people, that we can now make it a bigger country, and now 5 countries at the same time, and now slowly but surely it's the world. Let's just say everything has a beginning and an end. So all tyranny will be born and will die, and we will go through these phases of learning together. It's like that last video I'd mentioned, how perhaps all of this awakening and all of this ability to see that something isn't right here more clearly than we've ever been able to see it, right? And to be able to see it is the gift, is the blessing, is the love in disguise that makes us worry and that makes us feel uncertain. So I told myself, you know, if there are those who could be so consumed in the illusion and in chaos, and I could only be who I am, then I will do what I feel like I need to do to the best of my ability, which is just to keep healing, is to keep helping, is to keep speaking, is to keep saying something, you know? Keep trying to make it a better world somehow, and keep exploring what love is, you know? It wasn't love that breaks the heart, it was illusion. That it's love that mends it. Love that mends the heart. I'm just going to pause for a moment. That's some deep reflection. It's some deep conversation. In the end, on that healing, every single person that ever said a prayer or ever cared about those in North Korea in a way that is about creativity and the well-being of others and the hearts of others, for anybody on the planet that felt this way about North Korea, I asked their souls to be a part of this healing. And in the last video, I think I mentioned briefly about that pot, a teapot that I shattered. And I was talking about, are the pieces what makes it whole now? And what is it to have the whole pod versus shattered pod? And it's only the illusion of having something versus now having a shattered something versus, what is it anyway? Well, God ended up putting the pot back together and handing it to me, and God told me that love is unbreakable, and that this pot would never be broken because love is unbreakable. And it got me thinking about love in this way that I've talked about here, to remind you that it's unbreakable, because I needed that reminder too. So now I have this unbreakable pot, and it represents the innocence and the inner child, and it has this beautiful rainbow on it. And the rainbow is a representation of love. It's not something other than, it's always been about love. Thus, the rainbow is about love. It doesn't identify me in some way, shape, or form. I love. That's what rainbows are. So there's a rainbow on there, and it just represents love and all the colors of the rainbow and love and its innocence and inner child. I grew up with Care Bears and, you know, My Little Ponies and Rainbow Bright, and I always loved rainbows my whole life, and I feel like they're a special sign, they're a special gift to humanity. And the Bible mentions that, you know, after the floods and the Noah's Ark, I believe it's part of that story where then the rainbow is shown that God would never flood the planet again. And so the rainbow is this special symbol, sign of love. And so in this pod, I put the sacred water, and I gave everybody that was there a representation of this pod, and we poured. There were so many of us, all we needed was a drop, and the drop of the sacred water from all of us, which is many, 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 many souls, actually went into that wound, is the firewall that creates the border, and it creates the separation, and it creates the pen for the livestock. Anyway, so we did that, and that went into the wound, and it's nourishing with unconditional love, this desperate need to almost create the hands around the neck. You know what I mean? Like you will not get out and you will never come in, and it's like this choking. So it's just reducing that and allowing it to have breathability. And anywhere in the world where there's a desperate need to create a mind control regime, that sacred water and that rainbow and the pod of love is nourishing their heart and helping them to comprehend an attachment to ego versus an attachment to heart, and to remembering of the love, and to not be afraid to face the reflection in the mirror. You know, one thing about people who do terrible things, I found, like for instance, this Kim Jong-Un wants to live forever. So in living forever, you'll never have to face what you have done. And souls that know what they have done, deep down inside, every soul knows what they've done. Even a narcissist knows what they're doing. And they're terribly cruel, evil people. And they don't just torment one person. They torment millions of people. But they'll have to reconcile those decisions because of the infinite mirror of all things. They will have to face their own reflection. And the soul is terrified of seeing themselves for who they truly are. And because of that fear, they want to avoid ever dying. And you'll find there's a lot of very old evil people because they're terrified of dying. Because once they die, they'll have to face their reflection in the mirror. And they'll have to face the decisions that they've made and how it has impacted millions of other souls. And what those millions of other souls have uttered and whispered and thought about them and knowing them. And they'll have to face all those echoes and all those echoes. So you could say it would take quite a lot to be one of those people who do terrible things, have a very long time to work through all those echoes. And that's why the trees showed up in that last journey that I was talking about, that the trees are helping us. The trees are helping to bring balance. They're helping to set the anguished children free. And we have to have faith in that. And we have to have faith that there's truly love in everything, you know, that there's love in everything. And maybe it's love that is the hardest thing to see. Because the tyranny wants to always be threatening you, wants to always be a reminder that it's there, wants you to always remember it, remember it, remember it, remember it. So you don't think about what really matters most, and that's the love, right? So I wanted to tell you the last part of what I saw in that journey, which was so beautiful. All the souls that came together to help North Korea. And I thought about the assassination of John Lennon and the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and JFK and the need to get rid of good people. And only evil people, or those that have no moral code, have the capacity of doing such things. But those who have a moral code do not have the capacity to cross those kinds of lines, because they feel it in their soul that this isn't the kind of world they want to live in either. I was thinking about that too. So I mentioned there was another lifetime, and I don't know, this is what I was shown, so I was meant to just know this information. So I kind of determine, is it really a past life, or is it simply information that I deeply relate to? So I find that all information is useful. Then you got to decide how you want to use it. So I don't relate to misinformation anymore. I mean, I find myself not attracted to being told what to believe, or being told the way that it really is. I don't know who to believe anymore, so I just consider this all information, and then I take it inside and decide what it means for myself, because there's a lot of illusions that exist here. So all there ever is, was, and ever will be will just simply be information, and now you'll have to navigate it. You'll have to find your way through it on your own. You'll have to count on yourself, okay? So in this information, I was shown myself, and it was a facility. It was kind of like a Stranger Things scenario with like 11. And I was part of this group, and they were studying the mind, okay? And I kept telling them, but I was very young. I was like 7, 8, 9. And I kept telling them that you can study the mind, but you're missing the whole body, is all the information. You can't just study the mind and just use the mind and the mind alone. You have to study the heart. I kept saying that, but they never listened to me. That was one of the details that I experienced in that life that really angered me, is that they never listened to me. I actually was trying to help them. They didn't want to listen to me. And I found in this lifetime myself saying the same thing. It's like, it doesn't matter how I say it, how I present it, how articulate I try to be. I try to be more intelligent by the day. I try to present myself in a clean and sleek manner. I want to be taken seriously. But people will either hear what I have to say, or they won't hear what I have to say, because their own mind will be blocking them from hearing what I have to say. And what I have to say, sometimes it's not like words, it's like communication from the energy world. And then I want to communicate from my heart, but then I have to use words in order for the people out there to make sense of what I'm saying silently. Here, I'm giving this information to you because people don't know what's in your container. You then use this voice thing, and then you translate what's in your container into words, and then those words are received and digested, and people say, oh, well, you said it like this, oh, you said it like this, and oh, you spelled that word wrong, and now everything you say is just not credible. And it's like, everybody has their own energetic translation of everything. And I remember that really upset me in that vision of myself, but also I have it like this strong parallel in this life, because I found myself saying that often, is how do I get people to hear what I'm saying? How do I get them to hear me? I want people to hear and understand what I'm saying. And I felt like I was always talking to a wall, and people were walls. I felt like I got through more talking to an actual wall than I got through talking to people. Then I'm convinced I've had a lot of lifetimes talking to myself. That probably too many lifetimes. That's probably why I'm so good at it. and I got used to talking to invisible people in a lot of lifetimes. That's why I got so good at it. And now here I am, this navigator of interdimensional worlds, and talking about what I see. And you'll either hear it or you won't. You'll understand or you won't understand. It'll be right for you, it won't be right for you. It's okay, you know. But I remember in that life, I kept telling them what was going to help their study be more successful. But I was shown that what they heard was, this is going to cost more money, and you're going to need more equipment, they're going to need more, and they're not going to fund that. So I'm hearing in their head what I couldn't understand at that time, that all they're hearing is more cost, more studies, more, and they're like, no, just the brain, just the mind. And they were, what they were studying in the mind was, they wanted to know what in the mind Okay, how do I explain this? So we all exist in an idea of a reality. So while we see the same thing and we could all point that out, that's blue, unless you're colorblind or something. For the most part, we all see pretty much the same way, but yet we translate reality slightly different from one another. So they were studying how could we provide a non-reality and get you to relate to it as your reality. So to provide a non-reality that then is adopted as reality. That was taking place somewhere, I don't know, in the 50s or 60s. And I was part of this group. I never met anybody else that was there. But I remember that they had my head shaved just like 11. And I just had this recently after doing this healing for North Korea, this echo back to me. And I remember the one thing that I was frustrated with is they wouldn't listen to me. And my guides told me that I chose that life because I wanted to help those souls that wanted to study the human mind. They wanted to study the human mind for good or evil, didn't matter, that I wanted to support in that science. And so I chose to live a life where I could support in that science. And it's totally neutral. It has nothing to do with good or evil. It's just, that is what I wanted to do. So if I'm still holding on to this bitterness because they wouldn't hear me about how this was going to help their study, because I actually came in to help them with their study, I need to just let that go. I was like, wow, there's a lot to this information. This is very interesting. But what's going on in the world today, huh? Do you feel like on some level there's probably a lot of information hidden behind the scenes, trying on mass scales to figure out how to get people to accept a non-reality as the reality? Is there any movements that you could think of in the world today where they're attempting to try this through advertisement, through ridicule and bullying, that is the natural, like, loving way to behave? Like, hey, that person isn't on the bandwagon, so we need to ridicule and bully them and call them names because they're not with our group of non-reality thinkers. Because they need to adopt the non-reality as reality so we can psychologically shift the masses of this whole location so we can create our own pen with pigs in it and control all of them. All right. I wanted to do healing, and I'm kind of doing this stuff behind the scenes. I do like to do healing where I don't know where I'm going to be guided, because I like to learn something that I didn't influence the topic, nor did anyone else, where I just let it be in the moment. But in order to make this next video, I had to kind of confess some of my deep reflections, whether it was an answer or just sharing reflection, right? I had to do that before I could do the next thing. So here you go. I'll let you, share your thoughts and all that. Thank you all for being a part of this experience with me. I hope you're all doing well. And bye for now.